Hello guys, and welcome to part 2 of this video. We're going to be taking a deeper dive look at some of the other kit that I use. So we're looking at monitors, lights, microphones, things like that, things that weren't covered last week's video. This one will be a little bit more in depth with those kind of things. It's going to be about the same length, so let's dive straight into that with a quick change from last week. Okay, another thing I can't talk about because I'm using it is a Rode VideoMic Pro Plus. It's the newer one that they've released. This is a fantastic mic. I've got it literally just above the frame here. Really, really useful, versatile microphone. I can have it on top of the camera, which I often do if I'm filming Vox Pops or I'm just filming a person up close and I don't have the time to set up, you know, a stand or anything like that, or have a boom operator. This is the microphone that I go to every time. Really, really clean sound, which I hope you can tell from this video. And it's just a really, really versatile piece of kit. Not particularly expensive. I think they're about £250 at the moment. So pretty, you know, within a decent price range for someone that needs an all-in-one microphone. I think it's just a shotgun mic, so you're getting a kind of pretty directional sound. But if you need to put this in a room and then just mic the room, it's going to do the job as well. It's not as good as the kind of condensers you can get at the higher price, but for an all-in-one mic, this really is a great choice, and that's why you see so many people using them. So Rode VideoMic Pro Plus, fantastic. Editing software, Adobe. It's been the go-to for me. It's the easiest thing. It's to have all in one. It's all in one place. I have Premiere, After Effects, Photoshop, Lightroom, and I use them all. Truly, it is not a cheap option. I think it's about £50 a month at the moment for a normal kind of subscription. But if you're working, if this is something you make money from, it's a fantastic choice. There'll always be debates about, you know, Premiere versus Final Cut and stuff. And like with anything, you have these debates. These will rage on forever. Is it the most stable bit of software? Absolutely not. They update these softwares monthly, if not more often, and then normally every couple of days to try and stabilize them afterwards. They crash a lot. There's problems. There's things I can't. There's options I can't even click inside Premiere. There's things I've had to kind of work around and find routes to deal with because they crash the software, and that's not great. That's not ideal. But for the absolute range of what I get from this software, and for the fact that they do update them, they do keep constantly adding features. I really couldn't beat it. To go on, if I used Final Cut, for example, which I can't because I use a PC, but if I did, I'd then go and have to buy Lightroom or Photoshop or anything separately anyway. So for me, the package really works, and I think that's why it's so popular. You really do get everything you need to, you know, be a creative, work in these kind of fields in one go. So for the most part, crashes aside, Premiere Pro and Adobe software is the way to go. Color grading, I do in Premiere. The tools are pretty good these days. I'm not going to argue against using DaVinci or a proper color grading software if that's something you want to do. If it's something you spend a ton of time on or you're really good at, then by all means use those softwares. They are better. They do have more features. But for me, Premiere does most of the work that I'd need it to do. I'm also colorblind, so color grading, so I try not to do too much anyway, apart from obviously, you know, the basic kind of grades I need to do to make my video look the way it does. Lighting, I recently just bought some, I think Newer's the company, I don't know how you say it, but some 3 Newer LED panels. One's got a softbox, which I'm actually going to pull into the frame. I'm just going to throw the lighting off, but you can see this softbox actually is really nice, and I'm able to bounce that wherever I want, and that creates a really good light. These are all battery powered as well, which is fantastic. Obviously I can plug them in, but these are very portable, very, very good lights to have on shoots. I can very easily set these up somewhere and create really nice, simple interview kind of lighting almost anywhere, which is really useful. So these are something I recently purchased and I hope to be using a lot more going forward, but I couldn't have this look the way it does without these lights. House lights, always crap. So yeah, Newer lights, not particularly expensive either, quite a good price. Right, I've managed to plug my light back in, so we've got a bit of light again. The last thing I want to talk about is my monitor/recorder, which is the Atomos Ninja 5. This is a bit of kit I picked up fairly recently, probably within the last year, and it has been a massive game changer for me and for the way I shoot. Having a monitor it's kind of hard to explain until you've used one, but having a monitor really allows you to see close to the final image whilst you're shooting, and for me, it gives you a real idea of like what it is you're actually seeing. It can really help with proper cinematography stuff like framing, composition, because you're really kind of seeing the image. These cameras are great, but the problem with the LCD screens is they're so small, it can be very hard to kind of get a real representation of what you're actually seeing and what it's going to look like when it comes in, goes onto a computer. So for me, the monitoring ability, of this is just fantastic. Really helps. You get false color, you get negative images, you can look at peaking, waveforms, histograms, all of that kind of stuff to really kind of dial in your images and make sure they are what you want, in one box. The Atomos Ninja 5 is not particularly cheap. I think they're about £700 in this country still. It's not a low-level piece of kit, but really for the advantages that it gives you in monitoring, then if you can afford it, they are, in my opinion, it's worth it. For me, the other reason I bought this was for the recording ability. Sony A7S's and a lot of the mirrorless DSLR cameras have record time limits. Apparently this is a tax issue. This might not be true, but I've heard that when you import these cameras, when the companies import them, if they can record for more than 30 minutes, they're also classed as camcorders, which raises the import tax. I don't know if that's true. It does sound quite reasonable though, so maybe that is a reason. But either way, you can't record for more than 30 minutes on this camera. A lot of the work I do is in the theatre, it's filming shows, things like that, and I need to be able to record for an hour at a time, sometimes even more, without worrying about stopping and starting and kind of having to cut them together and have those issues. So for me, getting around that issue as well, being able to record for really as long as the storage and the power will allow is a massive, massive bonus as well. So it also lets me record in a higher bitrate than the camera would. I think I can get 100 megabits a second out of this camera internally. Externally, that can go right up to sort of 400 or 500 if I'm recording in the highest quality that the monitor will allow. Unfortunately, the Sony camera does only allow 8-bit externally. If you use a GH5, Panasonic, something like that, you can get a better image out of the monitor than you can out of the camera. The Sony doesn't quite allow for that, but the higher bit rate's always nice. It does mean the files are much bigger. I can choose to kind of use what quality level I want to use. Also, being able to shoot direct into ProRes is a massive advantage. If I'm doing a project that has a lot of files in it, the Sony codec can really kind of bog down the computer and make it very choppy and hard to edit on. I've got a pretty beefy rig, but even so, it can be quite difficult. The ProRes runs buttery smooth in a computer. Very rarely have an issue with ProRes. It's a fantastic codec that a lot of people use these days, and to be honest, it makes the editing process a lot smoother and easier. So that's another good reason to use the Atomos Ninja 5. In my opinion, amazing bit of kit. If you can afford it, if it's something that you do for a living, if it's something you make money out of, fantastic option. Is it something that you want to use if you're doing this as a hobby? Maybe not. I don't know that you need it for that. But again, if this is a job for you, if it's something you want to even make into a job at some point, I think an external recorder that's also such a fantastic monitor is a great bit of kit to have. Okay, so moving on to other kit. I've got a Xeon Crane 2, I think. I'm not actually too sure which one this is. This is a fantastic gimbal. These are not particularly expensive these days, I don't think either. It's the gimbal I've used for forever, really, since I started shooting. It was one of the first things I bought. I always wanted my footage and my kit to be mobile, to be something that was kind of dynamic. I don't like tripod shooting very often. I try not to do that as much as possible. So a gimbal was going to be the way to go for me. It works very well with my camera. As I said, on a lighter lens, it's fantastic. I've added a few things to it over the years. I've got some extension, like horizontal extension arms, which make it really nice to hold, I think. I think holding like this can be quite difficult if you do it for a long time. This setup is better for me, and it's a little bit smoother a lot of the time. There's tons of options you can get in terms of which style of arms you want to use or which setup you have, and I've gone back and forth with a couple, but that one is one I really like. It also means I can attach my monitor to the gimbal if I need to, if I want to be recording using that, which I don't always do. It's a bit of an extra setup. It can take a bit more time, but it's a great option to have. So yeah, Xeon Crane 2, which are pretty good value these days, and really just if I had to pick one bit of kit to use exclusively, it would be the gimbal. There's so many different types of things you can do with a gimbal. The options are just almost unlimited, really. I use them a ton. I've started recently trying to use them slightly less just to achieve different styles, but really for run and gun filmmaking, videography especially, gimbals are fantastic these days. And if you look through my work, most of it, or a fair portion of it, is using a gimbal. So yeah, I'd recommend one of them highly. Okay guys, so thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed today as much as last week. Next week we're going to be moving on to some other stuff, looking at some of the ways I actually create this content, maybe looking at some of the editing techniques, maybe looking at some of the filming techniques. Probably going to decide in the week, so we'll decide when we get there. Cool, see you next week guys.